Hello everybody, I'm Ian Abernethy, and in this video I want to talk about the 4 key differences between martial arts and self-protection. So this video is a follow-up video to the one I put out a few days ago on 5 things martial artists get wrong about self-defense. That video seems to have been quite popular, seems to have hit the mark with a lot of you, but I did notice that even some of the people who were enthusiastically agreeing with me were actually committing some of the errors that the video actually pointed out. So I think it's becoming increasingly clear to me that people don't get that martial arts and self-protection are different, radically different. I'm not just talking about functional skills within a self-defense scenario or physical skills. They are entirely different fields of study. So in this video, I want to kind of break it down by looking at those 4 key differences in the hope that this will kind of better communicate the core message. So the first difference I want to discuss is the goals. There's differing goals between martial arts and fighting and self-protection. So I use the terms consensual violence and non-consensual violence to help illustrate this. So when 2 martial artists fight each other, it's consensual violence. They agree to fight. They agree how they're going to fight, when they're going to fight, what methods they're going to use to fight, and they agree what a win is. So they have an entirely symmetrical set of goals, they're playing the same game. When it comes to criminal violence, you now have asymmetrical goals, non-consensual violence. So the first thing is you didn't consent to it. You don't want this, and that in itself changes the dynamic massively. The criminal doesn't want to fight you either. It's not in their objectives to do this. Their objective, their goal, is to hurt you, humiliate you, gain pleasure from you, take things from you. That's what the criminal wants to do. And your aim is to avoid harm. So the fact that your goals have shifted radically changes the behavior. So if you approach self-protection with that fighting mindset, it's very problematic because you're failing to address the fact that the person you're facing has a different goal from you, and that your goal shouldn't be to fight either. Now, and to me, this is one of these very obvious things, but martial artists fudge the issue, confuse the issue with a term that I'm growing to hate more and more and more, and that is street fight. Because martial artists use the term street fight to be synonymous with self-protection, and it's not. As I mentioned in the prior videos, self-protection is legal. You're legally allowed to protect yourself from criminal activity. You're not legally allowed to fight in the street, right? That's a criminal act that you have consented to, or been provoked into even, but either way, it's still not self-protection. You stepping outside to punch a guy because you're angry with him or whatever it happens to be, right? That isn't self-protection. That's now consensual violence, illegal consensual violence. So the first fundamental thing that we need to understand is that martial arts and fighting and self-protection have differing goals. Everyone involved in them has differing goals. In martial arts and fighting, we're training to become better fighters. We're trained to outfight someone in consensual violence. When it comes to self-protection, we're now talking about non-consensual violence. The criminal wishes to harm you in some way and you do not want to get harmed. Because the goals have changed, everything else changes. So the next major difference is the fact that we have a differing enemy. Now, this is obviously related to the goals, because the fact that the criminal has different goals means that they will act in different ways. So it's related to the last one. But the specific bit I want to draw out on this is that martial artists need to grasp that it's a different enemy and not judge them by the standards of martial arts. Martial artists have a really bad habit of being arrogant about this, that assuming that because they could beat the criminal in that consensual exchange, they have a higher degree of martial arts skill, that they are superior to that criminal. If I can beat a black belt in X, surely I can beat a common criminal who doesn't have that black belt. If I can deal with a trained fighter, surely I can deal with someone who's not a trained fighter. Again, the fundamental logical flaw there is assuming the criminal wants to fight. We've talked about this. But we need to accept it's a different thing. So you may be, the expert in fighting. You may be the expert in your martial art. But the criminal's the expert in criminal violence. You're on their turf, playing their game. right? So not a lot of it transposes across. So to use a couple of analogies for that, like one of my teachers said, he said when martial artists fight each other, they sit down and they play chess. It's a skilled interchange when two martial artists are engaged in consensual violence. So they approach self-defense in the same way. They sit down ready to play their skilled game of chess and surprised when the criminal throws the pieces at them and smashes their head in with the board. Now, it remains the fact that you are still the better chess player, but you misunderstood. The criminal is not seeking to play chess. And when you change environment, who is the apex predator in that environment also changes. So if I'm swimming in the ocean and I suddenly see a shark, I panic. Right? If I'm walking on the African plains and I suddenly see a lion running towards me, I panic. Right? But I'm not that worried about if I'm swimming through the water and I see a lion. I'm not that worried if I'm in the African plain and I see a shark. Right? You know, because as soon as you change the environment, they're no longer the apex predator in that environment. Yeah, I know people that I could defeat all day, every day, like on a map, no problem. But moving to their context, they are scary, scary, frightening people. Right? So we need to make sure that we understand this, that the criminal is a different enemy, a different kind of enemy. And it's arrogant of us to judge them by the standards that we apply to ourselves as martial artists. So the next difference, and it's a big difference, an almost universally overlooked difference, is you have a different kind of student too. The kind of person who wants to learn martial arts and fighting is very different from the kind of person who wants to learn self-protection. I'm a martial artist. I understand the martial artist. I started training when I was a kid. I'm now almost 50. I train hours and hours each week. I've devoted decades of my life to this thing. The kind of person who wants to learn self-protection doesn't share that enthusiasm. They don't want to devote decades of their life to learning self-protection, nor do they need to. You know, what they want to do is learn a life skill. And a friend of mine, Jamie Clubb, likens it to first aid, which is also a life skill. You know, I've done first aid training. I did an initial intensive course, lasted a few weeks, you know, and then after that I have refreshers every so often. That's how we should approach self-protection. You don't need to devote decades of your life to be able to do first aid. It's different. Now, if you're a martial artist who wants to learn self-protection too, well, you can do that. You learn your self-protection skills and then you go off to specialise in the fields that you really enjoy. If ground fighting is your thing, go and study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You become the brain surgeon of ground fighting, in addition to having your first aid skills, right? If kicking's your thing, go and study Taekwondo. Become the heart surgeon of kicking, the specialist in that area. Or punching, do boxing. Throwing, do judo. Whatever it is that you really like, go and specialise in those things. Become the expert in those things. However, when it comes back to self-protection, we'll all pretty much be doing the same thing. Those expertises might help us do it a little bit better, but we're not applying those expertises. So for example, if a brain surgeon sees a guy choking in a restaurant, he applies first aid. If he sees a car accident, he applies first aid. He doesn't use his brain surgery because he realises that's not the appropriate skill for the context in which he's now operating. Also, you know, you sometimes get martial artists or groups who say, no, it's self-protection only. That's all we ever do. That's all we ever think about. That's all we ever practice. I've got news for you. You're wrong. Right? Or you're an incredibly inefficient instructor. You should be able to get the vast majority of the skills they need for self-protection covered within a matter of a few weeks, couple of months at most. Right? After that, you are now moving into other areas, right? You are related areas, but other areas. You're now starting to teach fighting and martial arts. Now, as I mentioned, you know, the fact that you have those specialities may help you for your self-defense skills, your self-protection skills, but they're not vital for them. Those who think they are, again, are misunderstanding the nature of self-protection and are reducing it down to only the physical. But it's really important that we get this. You know, people want to learn self-protection, give them self-protection. It's a life skill. You know, it's not something they need to dedicate their lives to, and it's not something they'll want to dedicate their lives to either. So it's another massive difference. Self-protection has a different type of student to the one that's interested in martial arts and fighting. So we've talked about the differences between martial arts and fighting and self-protection. They are radically different things. They have differing goals, differing enemies, differing students. It's a whole different skill set. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that they need different instructors. Unfortunately, it probably does, right? Because if you look on Google or YouTube, if you look up self-defense, self-protection, what you most often see are martial arts instructors teaching fighting and martial arts under the guise of self-protection, sometimes using the street fighting camouflage, which drives me nuts. They are different fields of study. And if we go back to the first aid analogy a moment ago, so you can make somebody a competent first aider, but that doesn't mean they're qualified to teach first aid. So if you want to be qualified to teach self-protection, you need a higher level of knowledge. It takes time and effort to gain that knowledge. So that's what I did when I decided, you know, I'm happy with my martial arts skills, but I want to teach self-protection properly and correctly. I went out and got those skills from people who really knew the stuff. It's something that myself and Peter Constantine deliver now, that we have the Combat Coach program, which is aimed at people who want to teach this stuff. You know, there's about, you know, documents about this thick for all the additional skills you need. So if that's something you're interested in, you know, get in touch and I can maybe point you in that direction. But there are other, you know, good resources out there as well, but they are differing things. Now, for my martial arts students, we do have a strong self-protection component. We teach that as part of the martial arts, but then we teach all the other stuff too. The fighting skills, the fun stuff, the historical stuff, the dueling stuff. But we're very careful to make sure that realise this is them specialising in a given field. There is limited crossover. Back to self-protection. It has its own inherent value, but it's not the same stuff. But also, independent of that, I have lots of self-protection students who've never set foot in the dojo. You know, they've never put on a gi or a belt or anything like that. You know, I've taught day-long courses, you know, week-long courses, month-long courses. It depends on the level of investment the student wants to give, what demographic they're from, then I'll adjust it accordingly. But it is different. They are very, very different things. You can't say that just because you've got a good fight record or you've won this competition or you've got this Dan grade or whatever it is that you're now qualified to teach self-protection. You know, they are two differing fields of studies. I know some self-protection instructors who've never done martial arts and they're fantastic self-protection instructors. The majority do, you know, and that can help because they obviously have the physical skills and that can help. But again, it's still a different skill set. They've acquired those skills separately away from the martial arts skills. Not the same thing. You can't just train martial arts and go, I'm qualified to teach self-protection, because you're not. You're not. They're different. If you want to teach self-protection, you need to learn it to a sufficient degree that you're then capable of teaching it. So I hope you feel this video has added some extra nuance points to the original video, because these discussions are all about nuance. And the internet doesn't like nuance. The internet likes simplistic tribal arguments where everyone can get mad at one another. And of course that's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to make a nuanced point. I am saying that self-protection is different from martial arts and fighting. I believe that to be true, and I believe we need to separate them all out so that we teach self-protection effectively and we enjoy martial arts, fighting, combat sports, all that fun stuff for their own inherent value without the need to falsely tie it to something else in order to give it merit. I say, I'm not making a value judgment. I love all of it. Unfortunately, there are people who do make value judgments, and people will wrongly assume that's what I'm trying to do if they've not watched the video. So they'll assume, because you see it a lot, don't you? You get guys, normally guys who are in terrible shape and couldn't fight sleep, but they become Mr. Street. Oh yeah, you know, those highly skilled combat athletes and martial artists, yeah, but you know, my stuff's for the street. Well, they're getting it wrong, because self-protection and the street are not the same thing, and it's clearly obvious that they don't have any fighting skills anyway. Over on the other side, of course, people hear this and they want to push back, so they go, no, you know, my fighting skills are ideal for the street. They're making the same mistake. They're not realising that self-protection and fighting are entirely different skills, and they should be able to realise that their fighting skills have their own inherent and demonstrable value. So if we can stop making these illogical back and forth arguments, if we can realise the inherent value in all of it, if we can separate it out and work problem down. What's the problem of this fight? How do I win that fight? What's the problem of self-protection? How do I address it? If we problem-led, we understand the problem properly and then get the solution, martial arts will be way better. We can get beyond all these tribalistic, pointless arguments. We can enjoy all of it for its own inherent value, and we'll deliver it effectively too. We'll teach it effectively too. So I hope that came across clearly in both of these videos, I'm not knocking martial arts or fighting. I love them. I think they have their own inherent value, and they should be proud of that. But self-protection nevertheless remains something different, and I hope that point has clearly come across. Nuance. And fortunately, as I say, the internet doesn't like nuance. But you've stuck to the end. I have to guess that you're one of the good ones, so I thank you for doing so. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, do all the stuff that you normally do. And yeah, thank you very much.